All right, well, he's one of the hottest prospects in the entire West Coast, and on March 29th, he will be headlining at the Mountain America Center for the Fierce FC heavyweight title. It is none other than Jordan Currie. Jordan, thank you so much for the time, man. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
I want to start things off with where you have been over the past couple of years. 2017, you had nearly a 500 record. You have now fired off 6 consecutive wins, and again, are one of the big names again in the entire country. Was there something that changed over the course of your preparation from earlier on in your career to what you've been able to do in the past 7 years or so?
How much time do we have? I'll tell you the short version of what happened, without going into making it too long of a story. Nothing really changed with my preparation. What did happen was, not to like drop a weird bomb, but some stuff happened in my personal life, and it just changed the way I viewed every single fight and went into every single fight. In 2020, around September-ish, I was hunting. I was sitting on the side of a mountain doing what I love. And this unbelievably severe depression just out of the blue came up. Long story short, I had like some real depressing thoughts about committing suicide, and it came out of the blue. So it wasn't anything that was gradual. It wasn't any life changes, anything like that. Literally, I remember where I was sitting. My hunting partner was sitting right next to me. This went on for about 18 months. And in that time, I didn't train at all. I left the gym. I was struggling every single day just to survive. I was committed to the psych ward for suicidal behavior. It was just it was some chemical thing happening in my brain that I really can't explain. I don't know what happened. I probably never will. Long story short, I get through that. I decided I was never going to fight again. I get through that, and I started doing jiu-jitsu again. And slowly but surely, I started having some good days where I was okay. Still had never thought about fighting. And this went on for a few months, and things they were getting back to normal, I guess. And my wife came to me and she said, if you ever do want to fight again, I'll support you. And I'm tearing up just thinking about it. I thought about it for a little while, and then I thought, you only live once, right? Let's do it. So I fought a guy named Jason Walraven coming back, and I realized in that first fight back that I'd always struggled in my career before with a lot of pressure. I put a lot of pressure on myself. I always had to win, and if I lost, it was like, oh my gosh, it was the biggest thing in the world. And I would go into fights very afraid, very scared. And remember when I fought Jason, I was sitting in the cage looking at him, and I thought, I've been through the worst you can go through in my own mind. There's nothing this guy can, what's the worst that's going to happen? I lose. And I went and won. And I started realizing, like, dude, my mindset's completely different. It's 100% changed, like no pressure, nothing. Like I'm getting warmed up in the back room and I'm just relaxed and good to go. So I beat Jason, and then I went and fought, I think it was Giovanni Serran, and same thing. I just went out and performed, no pressure, no stress. And then I went and fought Tomar, and it was the same thing. And then I went and fought Anthony Hamilton, and I remember vividly when I was standing across the cage from Anthony, I just remember looking at him and thinking, if you'd have fought this guy, 5 years ago, you'd have been done in your own mind before the fight started. And I remember looking at him and just being like, that's a big guy. Oh, well, we'll see what happens. No pressure, And so that's kind of what's led to my success, is just I have this unbelievable belief in myself. And I know that there's nothing they can do to me that's worse than what I've already been through.
Have you spoken to other people about this specific mindset switch in terms of having success in this sport? Because I feel like the demons and the mental battle is just as big as the fight itself.
Yeah, I've talked to a few people. I've never talked to anybody, like I've never told that story. I just told you on a scale like this. So I've told, obviously my close family and my friends know about it quite a bit. I've talked with Trevor, obviously my wife knows because she was here by my side every day through it. Dighton, my jujitsu coach, he knows about it, but I've never really spoken about it on a bigger stage like this
Yeah.
about it too much.
When you decided to come back, how easy was that decision for you? Was it difficult at all, or did it really just seem like you had the support from the masses around you?
Yeah, it was a little difficult at first, just making the decision because I had thought, all the stress that goes into a training camp. Do I want to endure that? I've committed to not fighting ever again, and so it was that. But I think once the wife came to me, and it wasn't me coming to her and saying, "Hey, I'd like to do this." It was her coming to me and saying that if I did, she'd support me. That was kind of like, okay, we're okay. So it wasn't too difficult of a choice after that period. And then, it's funny though, once I fought Walraven, I didn't really think much about it. I just thought, oh, cool, you won. And as time keeps going, I'm like, I just keep climbing this ladder, and I'm like, wow, how far can you take this?
Yeah.
you know?
That's so interesting. Is it hard to kind of battle the don't let this moment get too big, because this is kind of the mindset that you've been on that's been putting you to a next level and to a new height?
No, it's not. And I'll tell you why. Every time I think about, like, even fighting Jared, it's like I think about, man, this is a big name, UFC vet and all this stuff. The next thought that enters my mind is always just, this is nothing, man. You've been through the worst you can go through. What's the worst? Jared's going to beat me. That's the worst thing that's going to happen. I'm going to go home to a loving family and a loving gym, and it's just another day. So there's no fear. I know it sounds like I'm taking it lackadaisically. It's not at all. Like, I train really, really hard all the time. Like, I do some real crazy stuff. I'm like cold plunging in 30-degree weather and stuff, but like, there's just no pressure on me whatsoever. I don't look at every fight like it's life and death anymore. And yeah.
Do you feel like the mental approach you talked about is physically, do you feel better in there as well? Or is it
Yeah.
still the same treacherous battle it is on your body every single time?
No, I feel physically better because I'm calmer. I noticed that I'm very calm, and I notice I'm having fun. So, like in other fights, I would in sparring and stuff, with your teammates, you sometimes mid sparring session, you'll laugh, or whatever, you kind of have these moments, and I never would have that in my fights. My fights were always very, very tense, and some people even mentioned it to me. They're like, I noticed in your recent fights, like, when I'm landing shots or when I'm doing stuff, like, I'm smiling and I'm like pointing at them and doing things like, and I'm not trying to be like cocky or arrogant. It's just who I am. When I can tell something's affecting them, I'm like, oh yeah, I know, and so I'm just looser in there, like, and that leads, of course, to better performances and everything.
You talked about fighting Anthony Hamilton. This is going to be back-to-back UFC veterans in which you're facing. Does that up the scale a little bit at all for you, or is it really just even keeled throughout the entire process?
I think it upped the scale when I fought Anthony, because I do think there was still a little thing in my mind of like, fighting Anthony Hamilton, this guy fought Francis Ngannou and stuff like that. Fighting Jared's a little different. It's not so much the UFC, what do you call it, acumen, or this UFC history that gets me on him. He's just good. Like, it's like I talked to my manager, and my manager's like, you're not going to face a guy much tougher outside of the UFC than this guy. And so it's not so much the looking at, I've already kind of stepped over that hill of fighting UFC vets. It's just that he's good. And I see his record. I see that he's on a streak. But again, it comes back to, like, he's just a man, and he can't put me through anything worse than I've already been through. And it's going to be a lot of fun.
It is going to be a lot of fun. How much have you studied up on Jared? You kind of mentioned the record and the streak he's been on, but what do you see when you look on paper?
Yeah, I don't study him. I don't study guys too much. I think you can get in your own head, and I have before with that. I watched a couple of his fights. He actually reminds me kind of a lot of myself. And when I watched him, I thought, that's funny. I do a lot of those things too. He's pretty quick for a heavyweight. I'm really quick for a heavyweight. He's got pretty good kicks. You know, he's got that good guillotine. It's like, man, I do a lot of those same things pretty well as he does. So, I mean, yeah, I haven't overdone it. I know I've watched some of his fights and seen what he does. You know, I've obviously looked at his record and seen his rankings and that kind of stuff, but I don't get too crazy. I do let my team do some of that though. Like I'll let my coaches go really watch and break stuff down that he's doing, you know, and you know, try to do, you know, formulate somewhat of a game plan. But I think at this level, it's like we're all pretty good at everything. So.
Yeah. For you, you talked a little bit about the UFC and obviously the trajectory that you are on. What is the goal? Is it the UFC still? Are you eyeing that at some point, or is it just continuing to rack up wins for as long as you can?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I'd love to make it to the UFC just because it's always been a dream of mine. But I think at this point, what matters more to me than anything is just providing a life for my family. I think I've told people this before. I think if I would have achieved this at a younger age, it would have really bit me. I couldn't have handled it. You know, I couldn't have handled being famous, things like that, because I was doing it all for the wrong reasons. And I feel like now I'm at a point where my only goal is to, I posted this on Facebook the other day. I said, my goal is to make it to the UFC, run through the heavyweight division, make more money than I know what to do with, buy a 100-acre farm that's self-sufficient, and I'll fade off into obscurity for the rest of my life. And that's really how I feel. Like every fight now is just climbing to get to that point where I can make millions of dollars to where I can just provide for my family and give them the life that they want. So yeah, obviously like the UFC is the place to do that, but there's other places you can do that too. So
what's the typical 9 to 5 right now?
I'm actually in barber school.
That's right. I did study up on that.
Yeah.
Yes. How do you like that? That is a very interesting career change.
I love it. Yeah, I love it. So my wife and I, we own a salon in Hayden, and gosh, be about 6 months ago now. I just told her, I'm like, well, I need something for sure that's after fighting, and I want to be my own boss. And you know, I love talking with people and hanging out with people, and why not? Yeah. So here we are.
You made the decision 6 months ago. How far are we out from potentially being able to solo practice and all that stuff?
Yeah, so we are. Let's see. I will graduate on May 12th.
Wow.
So I'm about halfway done right now with the program. I actually, you know what? Since we're talking about stuff I've never talked about before, I'm actually in the middle of opening a barbershop right now. So I'll be a barbershop owner before I graduate.
Wow.
So I do have a business partner who's an established barber, and then I have some other barbers already ready to work there. But it'll be a busy couple months.
You're a veteran, obviously. Jared is also a veteran. Between the two of you, you'll have 50 pro fights coming into March 29th. Is there a higher IQ level when you're facing these higher level guys as you get longer and longer into your professional MMA career?
Oh yeah. 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 How do I say this the right way? I mean, we've just been there so many times. You know, we know when to conserve energy. We know when to use energy. It's a whole different ballgame at this level. And you're facing guys who, if you make one error, it's probably going to be the end of the fight. And, you know, when you're not facing guys to this level that have had this many fights, you can afford to make a few mistakes as long as you're generally better. But I think once you get to this level and the next level, you got to be pretty much perfect. And because they'll just take advantage of it. If you're not, if I do things wrong, Jared's going to take advantage of it.
You have so many of your wins racked up by submission. When did you start training, and kind of what are your roots when it comes to that?
Yeah, so I started training back in 2007. Goodness, I feel so old saying it out loud. Yeah, I started training in a garage. It was catch wrestling at first. I'd never wrestled in high school. I just went straight into catch wrestling and started for all the wrong reasons. Started because just ego and, wanted to beat up some bullies from middle school. And so then I just fell in love with it. Jiu-jitsu I eventually started going to a jiu-jitsu gym. And back then it was a little different because people just weren't as good and you didn't have as many good people to train with. So it was hard to really get better, and then I found Trevor's, AKA, and switched over to there. And that was that was really eye-opening, that I did not know anything about fighting at all. And then I've been there for I think 13 years or so. And we have the gym is just such a great place. It's just very family oriented, lots of black belts, lots of really high level people. We have a lot of world champions actually, went down, and a lot of, how am I saying this the right way? A lot of people went down and won master worlds at our gym. I think we had 3 world champions. Yeah, 3 world champions. So, that's just, obviously grappling's a huge part of MMA. So, I've done it, but I think my record's I don't know how much I should say on here about my record being a little bit deceptive. I like striking. So, but you would never guess, but while you're looking at it, but I actually really like kickboxing.
Your amateur debut was almost 18 years ago, which if you line it all up, it sounds just about right. 2007 was the year in which you kind of started training. So you went straight into competition. Was that always the plan? You kind of said that you got into this for the wrong reasons, but was that always the plan, was to start competing as soon as possible?
Yeah. Yeah. I always had kind of a tough guy complex. And so, through high school, in middle school was a little different. I got bullied in middle school. I kind of blossomed a little bit in high school. And then I was kind of like big muscly football player. And I always thought, man, I'm really tough, And so then I started training, and I thought, man, I could take a fight. And then I go and take one against a guy named Jory Erickson. And I think that video actually just ended up on YouTube, where I got my ass kicked. I didn't really know much grappling then. I mean, I didn't know much striking either, but Jory was a really good wrestler. And yeah, he just took me down and put the beating on me. But yeah, no, I've always been a competitor. I played football and basketball, played a bunch of sports. So competition was always going to be what I was going to do. I didn't think it would go this far.
Sure.
But
If you could turn back the clock and go and give yourself advice back in 2007, what would you say to your past self?
Oh, man. This gives me a really long interview. I would say that you need to do everything that you're doing for the right reasons, is what I would tell myself. Don't just do things to do them, but think about the reasoning that you're doing them. And as long as you're doing them for the right reasons and doing them in love, then good things will happen,
Fast forward to the present. What are those right reasons for you?
Family. I would say like 99% of it's family. 1% of it, I shouldn't even say 1%, because my gym is like my family. So like when I say family, it's also including the gym. But there's like a 1%. I have a little like what's the word? I have a little chip on my shoulder, just to prove people wrong. And if you went to our gym, you'd realize there's all kinds of back and forth. There's just, every time you walk into the gym, it's chaos back and forth. And it'd be really cool to walk in there like with a UFC belt on. Sure. And just be like, can't really call me fat anymore, Trevor. Although I'm sure he still would.
Does the chip on the shoulder come directly from the gym, or does it come from past self-doubt, other people? Where does that come from?
And that's a good question. It's really not the gym. It's more of past people. And again, that's probably not a good reason, to be able to look at people and say, I told you so. But again, that's only 1% of it. But I would say past, people have doubted me. And people, especially when I was like even record, people would even say things like, oh, you're 7-7. It's like, I there is a part of me that wants to look and be like, look at me now, look at me now.
Yeah. Was it hard to, I guess, make sense out of being an MMA fighter and taking up so much of your time back when you were in those 500 depths? I mean, considering now how much things have changed, but I guess two-parter here, was it all worth it in the end in your eyes?
Yeah, I think so. This is part of a little conversation I had with myself when I decided to come back. Was I've almost felt like, some guys go to college, some guys go to trade school, which I guess I am now, but I always felt like fighting was my college. Like that was what I dedicated my time to and my life to. And so I better try to make the most of it while I still have the time. And that was one of the big things with the return, was saying, hey, if I'm going to do this, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it for the right reasons, which is my family. But I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it fully. And I would say, even if this didn't happen, even if this success didn't happen, that it was always worth it, just because of the life skills and the integrity that fighting has given me, the camaraderie, the friendship in the gym. I mean, these are guys that are lifelong friends. They're my brothers. They're my family. People that I probably wouldn't have, without this. So the success is great and everything, but I think it would have been worth it, even if not, just for those reasons.
We talked about, how long you've been doing this for. Do you ever feel like time is ticking? Like you gotta go, that you're in a little bit of a rush in any way?
Yeah. Yeah, I do. Yeah. I know it's the cliche answers to say no. No, I know it's ticking, Father time gets everybody. I know I've probably got another 5 good years left, maybe like 7 if I, really take care of myself. But the way, it's not just that I'm getting old, it's that I've done it since I was 18. I always tell people, I'm like, I'm not 35, right? Because I've been fighting for 17 years, and it's like dog years. You got times it by 7. So I'm like 119, I think. If I do, is my math correct? Hold on. 17 years times 7 is, 119. Yeah. So that's how old I am.
Third belt potentially on the line. How exciting is that for you, given that you've already picked up a couple along the way in the past few years?
It's exciting. I think it's probably more exciting just if I were to beat Jared. That's more exciting to me. The belts are cool, but if I'm being honest with you, until you get the UFC belt, it's is it cool? I mean, I don't mean to downgrade Fierce or anything like that.
No.
It's more about fighting Jared. Like that's a really tough guy to beat. That guy. It's like when I fought Anthony. It's like, was it cooler to win the Koga belt, or was it cooler to beat Anthony Hamilton? Oh, it's cooler to beat Anthony Hamilton. Yeah. So the belts are cool. It's cool to put them up on the wall. When my teammates are razzing me, and they do it all the time, I tell them, I'm like, hey, just go in the lobby and look around, and you see what's in there. Oh yeah. Don't say anything else. So that's a cool part about it. But other than that, and then obviously people calling you the double champ and stuff. It's cool. It's cool. But yeah, beating Jared's more important.
On the poster, you had 2 belts around both of your shoulders. Where would the third belt go if you were to win it?
Whew. That's
Around your
right.
waist?
Well, according to Trevor, it wouldn't fit around my waist. So I don't know. I guess I guess we'll cross that bridge when we get there, right? I don't know, man. I don't know. 2 on the shoulders. Yeah, I guess the waist is the only place it can go. So
lots of hardware to look forward to. Final question for me. March 29th. What can the fans of Idaho Falls look forward to with Jordan Currie making the walk?
they can look forward for me to fight my heart out, to know that I'm in there for the right reasons, to know that I'm when I say, it's like when Sean Strickland said to the death. It's like there's a referee in there to save us, right? But I really mean it. Like I'm fighting for my future, and I'm fighting for my family. And in my mind, I'm fighting till the death. I know that's not going to happen, but that's my goal when I go in there, is that this is my future. This is the potential life that I want to give my families on the line, and I'm going to fight like it.
Heavyweight gold on the line. Tickets on sale. FierceFightingChampionship.com. So much so looking forward to it. Jordan Currie, thank you so much.
Likewise. Thank you.